Hello, folks, and welcome back to another case study where I'll discuss and analyze some of the strangest state and national park missing person cases out there. In this segment, I'm going to be talking about a recent disappearance of a 51-year-old woman who vanished in early April of 2024 inside the White Tank Mountain Regional Park in Phoenix, Arizona. Despite all the clues and effort thrown into the search, the woman's disappearance continues to baffle many. So let's go ahead and get that ball rolling. On April 1st of 2024, 51-year-old Amber Bretsch was last seen by her family in the area of North 27th Avenue and West Deer Valley Road in Phoenix, Arizona. And from what I can gather, the family had reason to be concerned about her well-being. Amber had been struggling to cope with the loss of her husband, who passed a few months prior to her disappearance. Well, a short time later, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Department, along with several other search and rescue outfits, located her vehicle inside the White Tank Mountain Regional Park, not far from her last known whereabouts. Inside the car, searchers found Amber's keys, phone, and debit card, which reinvigorated search efforts. From April 3rd until April 8th, rescuers scoured the park using police dogs, ground units, drones, and other sources, but as of May 2024, no sign of Amber has turned up. Now, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of this case, let's switch gears and talk about Amber, just to give you an idea who she was and what may have brought her to the area to begin with. The 51-year-old mother is described as 5'5", around 180 pounds, with red hair and brown eyes, and sometimes wore glasses. Amber was familiar with the park, having served as park host in previous seasons. Although she no longer hosted at the time she went missing, she was still volunteering there and knew the area well, according to her daughter. Although she had no physical issues that would prevent her from navigating the area, sources seem to indicate that Amber had suffered a stroke 10 years previous and may have been vulnerable without her medications. This may provide us a glimpse into her mindset at the time she went missing. Was Amber dealing with depression? Was she considering self-harm? We'll get into this more later on. I also wanted to mention that Amber was known to be a devout Christian who attended church regularly and even volunteered to help those struggling with homelessness. Those who came to know Amber described her as quote-unquote extremely loving, giving, calm, and kind. So now that we have a brief summary of who Amber is, I'm going to talk about the park, just to give you an idea of what both Amber and Search and Rescue are up against. The White Tank Mountain Regional Park is located 30 miles northwest of Phoenix, Arizona, and spans 30,000 acres that include rugged mountains, ridges, and canyons with over 30 miles of hiking trails. Every year, the park draws in thousands of hikers, backpackers, mountain bikers, visitors, and even horseback riders from time to time. According to MaricopaCountyParks.net, the park's trails range in length from 0.9 miles to 7.9 miles, with moderate to strenuous options that offer rewarding views of the surrounding landscape and geography. One of the most popular trails featured in the park is the White Tank Waterfall Trail, a 1.9-mile out-and-back trail, generally considered an easy route, and takes about an hour to complete. Some sources seem to indicate that this was Amber's favorite feature within the park. The park encompasses 30,000 acres of desert and mountain landscape and is home to a wide variety of plant and animal species. Visitors can expect to find oak, juniper, sagebrush, desert scrub, and ponderosa pine, depending on which portion of the park they visit. Some of the park's wildlife includes mule deer, mountain lions, bobcats, tortoise, and javelinas. In fact, visitors can also expect to see signs throughout the park warning them of mountain lions. Now, could animal predation be at play here in Amber's disappearance? We'll get into this more in just a bit. But first, let's go ahead and talk about Amber's disappearance and the extensive search effort involved. On the day of her disappearance, the weather had called for a slight chance of rain, and was expected to taper off by the afternoon, revealing partly cloudy and sunny skies, and winds ranging from 4 to 7 miles per hour throughout the day. In the morning, daytime temperatures kicked off around lower 50s and would reach into the mid-60s at the high point of the day. Now, nighttime temperatures were a different story, ranging from a high of upper 40s and dipping into the lower 30s. Anyone not prepared for those temperatures would have most certainly found themselves in a predicament. Could hypothermia be at play here? Now, before we switch gears and talk about the search involved, I wanted to share an article I found online while researching this case. According to EasyCentral.com, in February of 2015, nearly 10 years earlier, Amber was reported missing by family members after she was dropped off at an LA fitness center in Phoenix. In this instance, she had only been missing a day or so before quote-unquote being returned to her family, according to the article. I would assume it was police who eventually located and returned her to the family. The article doesn't provide any additional information explaining why or how she went missing, but this may very well be the case in this instance. Could she have chosen to disappear again? Are we looking at a distraught woman who wanted to disappear after the loss of her partner just a few months prior? Well, this is the direction I'm leaning in, because her personal items were not only found inside the car, but Amber herself had spent years working in the park and had bonded with the area. And it's quite possible she may still be in the park, living in some kind of off-grid survival shelter or cabin somewhere. But it's also possible that we're looking at a self-harm issue or mental health crisis. Some folks deal with tragedy in extreme ways and often become detached from reality. I myself have been there, but eventually I know that pendulum will swing the other way. So let's go ahead and talk about the extensive search effort for Amber. On the day of her disappearance, Amber was last seen by her family in the area of North 27th Avenue and West Deer Valley Road. Well, this area is practically in the middle of the city, surrounded by businesses and residences. Now, why exactly she was there is still unknown, but I would imagine she was either running errands, visiting a friend, or just conducting business. Whatever the case may be, this area was the last known sighting of Amber herself. Now fast forward to the search. On April 4th, her 2017 Kia Rio was discovered by a park worker within the White Tank Mountain Regional Park with her personal belongings still inside. I wasn't able to find any specific details on the location of her car, but sources seem to indicate it could have been in any number of parking lots or service roads in the park. The discovery of her car reinvigorated search efforts, and they began to arrive in large numbers. Multiple agencies, including local authorities, park officials, drones, dog teams, and volunteers combed the park from April 3rd to April 8th. But after this point, their search was scaled back due to the total lack of clues and dwindling resources. However, the search would remain active in various capacities and continues to this day. As of early May 2024, family members, along with a handful of volunteers, are still actively searching for clues. Unfortunately, this is a bit of a needle in the haystack kind of situation. With over 30,000 acres to comb through, well, this is no small feat, but I remain hopeful that something's gonna give. The clues to her disappearance are most likely under our noses, waiting to be discovered. I'm hoping that by bringing this case into the spotlight, we can create more awareness for it. So if you happen to be visiting the park or just in the area, well, keep your eyes peeled for anything that might be useful to investigators. Abandoned clothing, shoes, or any sign of a campfire could very well be tied to this case. So let's go ahead and talk about what may have happened to Amber. During my research of this case, I came across some other missing person cases within the park that I thought I'd mention. In 2017, a 54-year-old man named Tony Ratt was last seen near the park. In 2014, a 68-year-old woman named Cheryl Case disappeared within the park. And in 2022, a 64-year-old hiker went missing but was later found deceased within the park. A cause of death was not released. These are just a few of the many incidences that have occurred in the White Tank Mountains over the years, and if you dig any deeper, well, you're bound to uncover more of them. During the search effort, dog teams were utilized around the clock, but there was no mention if they were able to pick up any scent trails from Amber. No evidence seems to point to foul play or animal predation as well. Now, it is quite possible she may have been taken against her will, but I believe this is unlikely. You gotta remember that this wasn't the first time she went missing, and there very well may be other situations where she was reported missing, only to be returned to family members. Amber has a solid history with the park and probably considered it a sacred place to go to recharge and enjoy sweet Mother Nature. I can't say I blame her. It's a beautiful area, and I myself would like to see the park in person one of these times. It's difficult to know what exactly happened at the time of her disappearance, but until we know more, we can only speculate as to what may have happened to Amber. Based on what we do know so far, I believe she may have wanted to disappear for a while, and it's quite possible she may have gotten herself into a sticky situation in the process. If she hadn't intended to harm herself, well, any number of things could have occurred out there in that park. There's a whole lot of wilderness to get lost in out there, and I could see it swelling up any evidence of her whereabouts. Of course, I'll continue to watch for any new updates and information that may come forward in the coming days, weeks, or months. There are still a handful of folks keeping the search active, so new clues or leads may be discovered at any given time. If you yourself have any information leading to the whereabouts of Amber, well, you can reach out to private investigator Chris Castorena at 602-732-0081. Or you can also reach out to the Phoenix Police Department at 602-262-6151. Until then, may we never forget the sad and strange disappearance of Amber Bretsch.